I don't know about you, but I'm finding it awfully hard to keep track of what day today is. Before we entered into this quarantine, stay-at-home, shelter-in-place season, it wasn't that unusual for me to wonder about the day's date. What date is today? It's April 29th, by the way. Now, I'm even having trouble telling what day of the week it is. Today is Wednesday, right? I've always been hyper time conscious. Now it seems much more of a struggle. Anyone else having that problem? Did you know that the New Testament actually has two words for time and two ways to measure it? Kairos and chronos. Chronos, from which we get chronological, it's the pace, the sequence of time. It's the tick, tick, tick of the clock. Kairos, on the other hand, is the opportune moment, the fullness of time, time that's pregnant with an excess of meaning, even if we don't always see it in the chronological ticking of time. Chronos is easy, automatic, predictable, controllable, precise even. Kairos, on the other hand, is unpredictable, elusive, a revelation, and wonderfully extravagant. I think I may have shared with some of you that one of my favorite stories about my dad was when he was a young boy and was chosen to take part in a science project. It was even to be featured at the local fair. Now, my dad grew up in north central Alabama, Cullman, Alabama. In the 1920s and 30s, many folk in the area made their living in agriculture. They still do. For this project, Dad was assigned the task of growing a special brand of a hybrid crop in order to see if it could produce a better crop. Dad did all the right things. He made sure that the soil had the exact, precise chemical mix. He planted at the right depth. He made sure that it had sun and just the right amount of water. Sure enough, pretty soon the plant began to sprout in its pot. A couple of weeks went by and the plant grew. It began to sprout the biggest leaves you ever saw. At this point, my dad couldn't see anything edible growing yet. Maybe it was too soon. A couple of weeks went by. Dad continued to do everything he was supposed to do. Still, he could see no crop. He began to worry. The fair was just a couple of weeks away. He continued to water and see to the plant's health. It was green and lush. Just nothing that could be eaten. Finally, the day came for the fair. Dad was distraught. Taking his potted plant to the teacher, he sobbed in little boy tears. "I've done everything I was supposed to do, but there's nothing here to eat." Fortunately for my dad, the teacher knew way more about that particular kind of plant than he. And with great love and affection, she reached down and pulled the plant out up from the soil. There, from its roots, dangled an abundant crop of ready to shell, ready to boil, ready to roast, and ready to salt and eat peanuts. No wonder you couldn't see them. Peanuts grow on the roots, not on the leaves. I wonder if, in a very similar way, we aren't now living in the abundance of Kairos time. While chronological time is now evading us, God is working unseen to bring about something in the rootedness of our lives that is better, fuller, more wonderful yet. Paul says in Galatians 4 and 5, but when the fullness of time, the kairos of time, had come, God sent his Son so that we might receive adoption as children. Could it be that God is working in the fullness of this season to bring us to a new relationship with our family, our friends, with ourselves, with the earth, with the whole world, maybe even into a relationship with the Creator of the world, to show us what is valuable, to draw us to what matters. One day last week, as I sat in my makeshift desk in front of the computer screen out at our farm, I found myself looking over the computer screen out into the field. The sun was shining and full with the newness of the day. I was struck by the many, many different shades of springtime green that were exploding there. I started to count, but soon lost count, caught up in the delight of the many colors of green. And somewhere in that moment, I found myself. Maybe the question isn't, what are you getting out of this time? But rather, what is God giving us in this time? Praise, praise, praise be to the kairotic God